You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Who needs updated? We have games officially underway in the early afternoon session throughout the country. The NCAA tournament. Welcome in. Boilermaker fans, are you happy? I don't even think that was cause for a whew, right? Because High Point never put themselves with consistent shot-making ability, I think, in much of a threatening position. You're going to say, well, wait a minute, what about the 7-minute mark or the 9-minute mark when they pulled within 3? That's not threatening. As watching this, and believe me, watching Purdue over the years, you've been through it all. Boilermaker fans are saying, yeah, you're preaching to the choir right here. But you've been through it all, and I never felt that even when they cut it down to 3 under the 10-minute mark in the second half, that they were truly a legitimate threat. And I know everybody has what they call it, PSD from Fairleigh Dickinson and, first-round disappointments and all that. I just never felt that High Point was going to be capable of putting themselves in a situation to get it done. 75-63 is the final. Trey Kaufman-Wren had 21. I said, listen, and whoever they end up getting, either McNeese or Clemson, in round number 2 in Providence coming up on Saturday, the win would advance them to Indy for the regional, which would be absolutely awesome. I thought Purdue left a crap ton on the table. Who agrees with me? Because the shot-making ability wasn't there. Here is, besides High Point just not being a legitimate, scary three-point threat at all, consistently scoring, again, I didn't feel threatened. The other aspect, Purdue had absolute ownership of the boards. Rebounding, they had at one point, I don't know what they ended with in the box score, 19 offensive rebounds with about 4 minutes to go. In the second half, they had ownership. So they went out there and they missed an absolute crap ton. So I thought that they left a great deal on the board, offensively speaking. Think about it. They shot 46%, and I think everybody's going to say, well, that's all right. 5 of 15 from 3. They missed 8 free throws. And obviously, you hope that Trey Kaufman-Wren has worked on so much to get better. And we talked to Matt Painter last week about the footwork, or what I want to say, because I'm from Southern Indiana, the feet work. Hey, what about his feet work? His footwork, and just how he has worked on his low post game to be as slippery as anybody in college basketball. Next up is that face-up game. And certainly with that face-up game, it starts because he goes to the free throw line and could go even more. Hit those free throws. At 10 of 16, I think anybody in the world would say that is great, but he would probably tell you as well that he left a lot on the table. Braden Smith, 6 of 19, 2 of 4 from 3, 20 points. Started out, had a really nice first half, but was a bit more of a struggle for him offensively in the second half. Don't get me wrong, he was still setting the table as he normally would. But it was a bit of a struggle offensively for him, really everybody but Kaufman-Wren in the second half. And that's what I mean by I thought that they left a lot on the table where they still could, put things together coming up on Saturday, again, with either McNeese or Clemson. And then make something happen to get back here. I mean, you're just doing baby steps right now. And that's the good thing about it. If you're a Boilermaker fan or if you're Purdue, I know that you're going to have a certain amount of pressure regardless, just because of the situation, because of the amount of success you had, and also because everybody in the world picked against you. Every nerd and dork that never picked up a basketball in their life picked High Point. Did you see all these every national nerd? It's just like every national nerd picked High Point, and every national nerd picked San Diego. That's something we talked about yesterday with Michigan head coach Dusty May. Those were what we like to reference as the fashionable upset picks. And Purdue gets past that. And again, as I mentioned, they leave a lot on the table. They did end the game, as I mentioned, with 19 offensive rebounds. 45-24. That looked like a damn Pacer game right there. 45-24 on the glass. And that, to me, was the biggest of differences right there. To me, that's where you start. High Point, defensively, Purdue obviously had a presence, 43% from the field, just a touch over 35 from three, and they missed 4 free throws as well. But, man, the rebounding was a struggle because Purdue was missing a lot of shots, but they were just able to go get them. They had second and third chances. A part of those moments in which High Point made a run in the second half, if you watch that, Purdue would come down, run a nice set, get a nice look, miss it, and then go get it. And a couple of different times, they didn't have just one reset. They had a couple. 75-63 is the final. Boilermakers await the winner in Providence coming up on Saturday. And McNeese and Clemson on the inbound. So there's your Boilermaker update. And Buckets is going to be here live from Providence coming up in the 4 o'clock hour with a full-scale discussion on it. What they did, what they can do better. I will start with this. Here's how I would expect them to do better. Can Fletcher Lawyer be involved? I'm sorry. I am going to stand on that. When he does either what he's supposed to do, what you figure he would do offensively or above, that team can be lethal. When he doesn't, they are incredibly vulnerable. And they could have been a lot more vulnerable today had Cam Heide not stepped up and the offensive glass and the rebounding was not the way that it was. So they made up for it in other ways. But, man, you need that third tier right there. And Lawyer's supposed to be in 1 of 4, even though he was 6 of 6 from the free throw line. But 8 points, you got to have more out of him in that position. You just do. Heide did pick him up, though. McNeese and Clemson, that tip time's coming up here at the bottom of the hour, 3:29. We will follow that. You're asking about games ongoing right now. Under 8 to go in the second half. Montana was hanging tight with the 3-seed Wisconsin. But right now, not looking good. 72-57, Whiskey over Montana again. They're in the under 8 timeout in that matchup going on right now in the East region. We'll keep you updated. Meantime, SIU Edwardsville, the 16 seed, the 1 seed Houston. That's my pick to win it all. I think a lot of picks are that to have Kelvin Sampson's team win it all. Up 30, Houston, 54-24 right now. And they're playing under 19 minutes. Actually just got underway in the second half of play. That's a Midwest region first round. Also underway, 14-minute mark first half. Auburn, a 1 seed, 7 points better right now than the 16. Alabama State, 15-8. We'll keep track of that. And then everything else that is going to be ongoing, all coming up later on today, with the exception, you thought there would be a lot more of an advantage for Louisville, but they could not stop a stinking nosebleed today. 89 points by the Blue Jays of Creighton put up on the board, and it was 9 over the 8, and that was, I think, a matchup everybody was kind of interested in, and Greg McDermott's team all over Louisville. And what was once for Pat Kelsey a very exciting, very awesome season, you go with the start, ACC and all that, kind of ended with a relative thud for those down in Louisville. 89-75 in that matchup in the South region. That is in Lexington, Kentucky. All right, I mentioned McNeese and Clemson coming up here at 3:29, just after 4 o'clock. The 11-6 matchup is BYU and VCU in the East region. 4:35, that 8-9 should be entertaining. SEC versus West Coast Conference, Georgia and Gonzaga. 25-8 versus 20-12. That tip is at 4:35. And then the swing game before we get to the night session is at 6:50. The 15-seed Wofford and the 2-seed Tennessee in the Midwest region. Everything else coming up later on tonight. All right, 239-1070. If you guys want to touch on the Boilermakers, we certainly can. But I'm going to leave a little bit on the bone here to hit up on the Pacers last night. Because if there was anything that was more worn out than Pacer fans utilizing the F-bomb in the second half and late in the fourth, and I'm sure you wore the F-bomb out last night, blank this and blank that, blank, 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 all over the place. You wore it out. If there was something that may have been even more worn out, it was your delete key or your delete button. Because there's a lot of stuff that was sent out and then you probably had to moonwalk it back. Because all of a sudden, there they were. All of a sudden, at the end, there they were. A defense in the fourth that couldn't stop anything. Hardy, Jones, Christie, all these dudes that wouldn't be getting any damn clock whatsoever for the Dallas Mavericks if they had, like, normalcy. There's no Irving. Luka plays in L.A., complete and utter discombobulation. And it was very reminiscent of how the Pacers looked on Monday night in Minneapolis against the Timberwolves. And as I mentioned going into yesterday, for God's sake, don't give it back. And the Pacers not only wanted to give it back, but they were damn straight about ready to give it back in the matter of 48 hours. It's like, oh, wait a minute, here it is. Because that's exactly what you would have been doing. So beyond all the F-bombs and all the cussing that was going on about this team, especially in the fourth, whether you were talking about their lack of fluidity offensively, the lack of being able to stop anybody, going small, Miles goes out, Obi comes in. They even go smaller late in that game. If you noticed, Obi comes in. It looked like a couple of junior high teams playing. Was this like the 6'2" and under league that was playing at the end of the game last night? Yeah, not really. Everybody was all over Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam, three-point play. Pascal Siakam fouling the three-point shooter. Pascal Siakam can't stop anybody. He's getting worked over right now. I'm sorry. Everybody's buzz term is what? Cooked? And I wish you would stop it because I'm sick of seeing it. Cooked. Everybody's getting cooked. We're cooking this and we're cooking that. By God, everybody's cooked, James. We're all cooked. We can't be beaten. We can't be shredded. We can't be downed. We got to be cooked. So everybody was going to the cook. Pascal Siakam's getting cooked. But Siakam stepped up big. A tremendous block that got everything started. The block on a breakaway and then the takeaway of Max Christie. And by the way, too, give him credit for this. After the takeaway, the steal of Max Christie, what did you guys see from Pascal Siakam? You guys want to tell me? Here's a little basketball quiz. What'd you guys see? Well, you almost saw a throwaway from Andrew Nembhard, but what you ultimately saw was an extra pass. Siakam, being challenged, could have shot the three. Extra pass to a wide-ass open Andrew Nembhard, who had missed a free throw prior, who had missed some shots, and people were wondering, people were depressed, as I mentioned, delete, delete, delete. Everybody was just F-bombing everything. And Andrew Nembhard knocked down the game winner. I will say this, other than Monday night for Andrew Nembhard, where he uncharacteristically lost it, but it's Gobert, and he's a big doofus anyway. But he lost it. Got teed up early in the game, got teed up because the doofus gave him a shoulder block, and then got tossed. Pacers still go on to win. Other than that moment, there's not a player on that Pacers team that seems like they're absolutely unaffected by stuff as Andrew Nembhard. Anybody else notice that? And I'm telling you, the good and the bad. It can be good. He can knock down a 35-foot step back in the playoffs against the Knicks. He can do that last night from straight on to give the Pacers the lead. Or he can be just like Brick City, absolutely everything. And the temperament, the personality is absolutely the same. There is something to be stinking said about that. And what I mean by it is, when everybody else is in chaos, and by the way, too, I don't want to hear the whole angle. Well, you know, clearly, a lot of times you suggest guys that are in the NBA and they play so many games and they're paid so much that they don't care. This is not at all him. He cares, but he is just built that way. I've always wanted to be built that way. So have you. You want to be able to keep your mind, keep the wits about you when everything else is going haywire and you're losing it. And again, on Monday night, that was completely out of character. But he was working with a jackass. And the jackass sometimes compels you to do things even completely out of character you would normally do. So he was compelled by the jackass. But normally, that's what you get from Andrew Nembhard. And I cannot stress to you how important that aspect is to a winning team. And I hate to use this term because a lot of coaches and former coaches use it, and it wears me out, just like Mount Rushmore of and narrative and now Cook's on that list too. But culture wears me out. But I'll give a little bit of leeway on this to everybody. In this case, that's what's necessary in description, and in this case, that's absolutely true. That is one of the most important aspects to winning. Seriously, it is Kevin Bacon from Animal House. That was fictitiously hilarious, but this is true. Remain calm, all is well. When everything else is chaotic around you, man, you want to be able to lean on somebody that is going to be chill about it, not lose their blank. And Nembhard, that is absolutely normally his MO. Maybe it wasn't in that game on Monday night. I'm just saying last night after that made three, I mean, hell, you couldn't tell. He'd missed shots up until then. He missed a very important free throw. You couldn't tell the difference. I've always admired, or at least had a great deal of admiration for guys that are built that way. That can take that and then move on. They can take stuff and make mistakes. Like, I don't know about anybody else out there. I mean, I wrestle with mistakes like crazy, and it's probably because that's the entirety of these 3 hours of me making mistakes. But it is tough to move on. I go, oh, man, I like bathe in it. I soak in it. And I've always had a great deal of admiration for those that can make mistakes, especially in the world of sports, and immediately move on. If you remember last week when I was talking to Mooney, that's exactly what I brought up. You know, have that level of confidence in yourself to where you know at some point you're going to get torched. There's another one instead of cooked, by the way, torched. You know at some point you're going to get torched, but you have to be able to forget about that and move on. I'm absolutely incapable of doing that. And I have a great deal of admiration for those that do it. And Andrew Nembhard is one. So you wore out the delete button last night. You did. Believe me, I was thinking about it. About the 4-minute mark. About the 4-minute mark, I wanted to say, well, look here. Great. Here we go. Giving it back. Here's a blank house effort. Thanks a lot. But I didn't. I thought, I'm going to wait and see, because you got a group out there with the Mavericks that rarely, if ever, have played together. They're all hitting shots. Everybody was hitting stinking shots. Well, Miles was a little bit dialed out of it. Pacers and Rick went small. I thought he went small when he had to. And I mean, hell, I thought he went smaller when he had to go smaller. Because it's weird. You don't want to see the Pacers in that type of game against that type of team the way that they were last night with 8 guys that were ready to play, that could play. You don't want to have to match up with like 8 dudes, but it was necessary to get the win. At some point, you don't worry. Hell, they never worry about it. I sure as hell don't worry about the point spread. You don't worry about the stinking point spread. You worry about getting a win and not having the egg on your face or the embarrassment of losing to a Mavericks team that roll in there last night with 8 dudes. That's it. And basically, since that Luka deal, it has been an absolute stinking disaster with that organization. And just all the goodwill and the love coming off a Monday night. Tuesday, I'm at the GOAT, and the temperatures are great, and I'm outside next to the Monon. I'm up there in Hamilton County with all you beautiful people. My ugly ass rolls up from southern Indiana. Hey, how you doing? Roundabout. I'm hanging out with you guys, having a great time at Moyer Fine Jewelers. And we're just talking endlessly. Such a gratifying Tuesday. And last night would have erased absolutely every ounce of that goodwill. All of it. Actually, I will say this. And you guys may not agree with me. I thought last night would have been more embarrassing for the Pacers than it would have been for the T-Wolves on Monday night. So, grant me this. I was right there. I'm always going to be honest with you. You know that. I don't have to tell you. But I was right there with you. I did want to hit sin, but I didn't. I wanted to hit it, but I didn't. And you guys are all giggling, but I didn't. And some had to backpedal significantly. Here's what's funny. There's one dude out there, and he knows who he is. And we were like going back and forth, and we're just like, like back and forth. But I didn't make it public. I didn't publicly. That's good. Pacers win 135-131, and I don't know if we could describe it in much greater fashion than that. You sidestep absolute disaster, which I know in the form of Pacer games, that's right up their alley. I mean, a game like last night, losing that is what they do. Like, I love how they're put together, and I love the group, and I so root for them. I'm not supposed to either, but, man, I want to see them do well because I sat here in the offseason and said, this is what you want. I want to see you win with these dudes. So, speaking of soaking in it, I do have to soak in it. However, last night, I was as pissy as everybody else. I just didn't make it public. And I'm glad because all of a sudden they step out. There's one thing, we'll talk to Jeremiah Johnson coming up at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. There's one thing that we all have to get out of this is you cannot continue to survive like that. This team is too mature, too veteran, has too much depth, even without Halliburton. They have too much of all of that to be putting themselves consistently in that situation. Hey, listen, Monday night's different. Monday night, they propelled themselves because of circumstances. That was impressive. Now, you can say the same going all the way back to Tuesday night with the Halliburton corner jump shot and the 4-point play and the win. Last night would have been like a Charlotte game. It would have been like losing to the Bulls. Or, any of these embarrassing losses that they have across the board that we've talked about this season, because that has unfortunately been a part of their fabric. That's been their MO. And that last night would have been the worst of them. And you would completely erase Monday night, and I'm glad that they didn't. The second of a back-to-back is with Brooklyn coming up later on tonight. We shall discuss JJ, top of the hour, buckets, Bobby Riddell, Boilermaker Radio Network, Purdue to the second round, McNeese. And when did we stop calling them McNeese State? Like thousands of years ago, and I just didn't realize it. McNeese and Clemson. So I'm going to get all these IU fans that never wanted Brad Brownell. You really want Clemson to lose, so you guys can all giggle about it and get on social media and make comments. Me, not so much. That's funny. You would rather see somebody from the state of Indiana that you giggle about that you didn't want as a head coach and Brad Brownell lose in that fashion. So, again, you can giggle about it and make comments in social media than a guy like Will Wade. It was like the underbelly of college basketball that just keeps, again, climbing the ladder here. You'd rather see that. 2-2, McNeese and Clemson. That is the 5-12 matchup. The winner gets the Boilermakers in the second round in Providence coming up. On Saturday, Bobby Riddell, Boilermaker Radio Network, coming up after 4. Mike Chappell is going to be here in the 5 o'clock hour, too. Got a little bit of things to talk about in terms of the Colts with Mike. Hey, listen, I realize this. I know you guys are watching games. I don't blame you. I'd be watching. Hell, I'm watching games. This is really the only thing I can do, 2 things at once. I can't do this and chew gum at the same time. As we found out on Tuesday, I can't text and talk at the same time. I have no idea why, other than I'm just not very bright. But I can watch games and talk at the same time. And we'll do that. We'll keep you updated. You guys hang with us. Some calls at 239-1070 forthcoming. We do have that opening for you here before the top of the hour. The stream, the app, HD Radio, inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. I know, become a AAA member today. You're going to need it. No matter what season, officially, by the way, welcome to spring. You're going to need it. AAA.com. And don't forget, at some point, this show is going to put together a AAA travel trip. I believe a cruise. Or as I like to reference it, a very drunken boat. A very drunken boat on the high seas where you can just yak right over the side. Because that's what I'll be doing. No, it's going to be a good time. Godbout's putting that together, baby. I'll let you know when I know. Quick break, we'll come back. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
the tailpipe.
You're not gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe?
It should be more natural, brother. It should flow out like this. Look, man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Scoreboard update forthcoming. I got a quote for you. You guys ready? See if you can figure out by this quote who is earlier today speaking this particular quote. James, this is a test for you two. Quote, I think it was just time for me to move on. I think it was some frustrating times through certain years. Obviously, it's no surprise I've had 13 different quarterbacks since I've been there, so I always envisioned myself playing in one place for my entire career. There was no negative impact or no major event that happened where it really pushed me over the edge. Can you tell I'm like playing a role right here, too? Mm-hmm. It was just when I left last year and there was no guarantees in my contract. I was a free agent. It was exciting for me. I felt like I was okay. It was time for me to maybe check out what else is out there and move on and have a new perspective in this career. So, yeah, I can't say there's a specific event. I'll miss the guys in the O-line room, and I'll miss a bunch of people there. But in my heart, I just knew it was time to move on, and I kind of felt that way over the last year and a half. End quote. Who said it?
Well, clearly it's an NFL wide receiver.
Offensive line. He stated offensive line.
Offensive line. I thought I heard something about the quarterback.
Former Colts offensive lineman who is now in Minnesota.
Oh, Ryan Kelly.
Ryan Kelly, James. There you go. Stephen Holder had this in the past 30 minutes. Former Colts center Ryan Kelly, the team's top pick 2016, spoke to the Vikings reporters for the first time after signing in Minnesota. Here's a notable piece of those particular comments that I just dropped to you right there. So, yeah, he, like you, did not like the revolving door of quarterbacks either. Ryan Kelly, now a member of the Minnesota Vikings. BT writes this. You know what, BT? 100% accurate. I've always said, JMV, that Nembhard plays with an attitude like he just smoked a blunt. I know it. Seriously. See, but I think that has a different effect on. Like, I'll give you a great example. Like, I would Cheech and Chong it up all the time, but the problem I would have with it is it puts me to sleep. And I don't often want to be asleep. Like when I was growing up, when you had parties that went down that way, the last thing you want to happen is for you to fall asleep at that party because unfortunate things would happen to you. Seriously. And then very unfortunate photographs would be taken. Listen, do I trust the people I grew up with? Yeah. But I don't trust them enough not to blank around with me if I pass out somewhere. So that was the problem.
See, that's such a thing of like a bygone era because I don't recall that ever being a concern for me or my friend group growing up.
Really?
Yeah, we never messed with each other when we would pass out.
If you were the first one out, it was your ass.
No.
Like your shirt would end up frozen in the freezer or something.
Maybe we're just a kinder generation.
See, I just think that's the penalty. That's the punishment.
That's fair.
First one to pass out, that's your ass. So, and with this BT, that always put me. That was the effect it had on me. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to get the munchies. You know, I Up in Smoke. I loved that film. There was really nothing in Up in Smoke that affected me the way that it affected Cheech and Chong. It just put me stinking to sleep. But I do agree. My man is completely level and chilled other than Monday night. But there was a different set of circumstances because he was dealing with a jackass. And sometimes the jackasses will take you out of your comfort zone. And you can see that every single day on social media. And that's why we together cannot let the jackasses prevail. We have to fight back against high-level global jackassery. And we will. And I'll be right there with you, my comrades, shoulder to shoulder fighting against profound jackassery. But no, BT, you're absolutely right. JMV, cooked. I absolutely despise the description. There's got to be other means. It's almost like that to me, the nerds say cooked. I think that is like a nerdy term. Hey, I think he cooked him. I think that guy got cooked. Did he get cooked? Did you see Siakam get cooked? The nerds say that. I hate it. Yes.
How do you feel when someone says so-and-so is cooking?
I hate that too.
You hate that too?
I don't want cooking. I don't want cooked. I think we've heard enough of the cooking references. It doesn't mean to be just saying it torched, lit up, beat down. Mm-hmm. Anything else but cooking or cooked.
Just overused?
That's just me. Like when I see that out there, I think some nerd has typed it in. I think you're a dork. Automatically. Hey, look at this dork. Cooked. I can't be the only one that reacts that way. Thank you. JMV, I think Siakam is normally a decent defender. He did struggle down the stretch last night, but, man, he won it back. He won it back with that incredible block and then that takeaway that led to it all. Cooking, nerds. There's no way I'm the only one out there that believes that. Hey, and you know what? And I don't mind you, too. I'm right there. If there's stuff I say all the time that you think sounds nerdy, then you need to tell me about it. And you probably will. I completely understand. But cooking and cooked, it's right there with Mount Rushmore of. It sounds like that it should be coming out of the grill of Mike Greenberg, and I just simply don't want to hear it. No more. Doug's at 239-1070. Doug, join the show.
Hey, man, what's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
Not much. So is Tyrese back tonight, or is he he's sitting on the bench still?
I don't know. Which way is the wind blowing? I put my finger up, but I'm in a shoebox here on the fourth floor. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I mean, it's a back injury. He didn't play last night. I mean, you would think he could play tonight and then, play again with the second of that matchup coming up with Brooklyn. But maybe this is a game, if he sat out last night, give that a little bit more wet rest. I don't know if you view Brooklyn and the capacity to where maybe this is a game where you can sit. I mean, hell, after last night, I mean, I don't know if there are any games like that.
Yeah, I was the same feeling as you. I was ready to send that message out, but then I sat around and, looked at it for a second.
Yep.
I didn't send it, and I'm glad I didn't, but, I was definitely a little worried.
I was on the verge. I was on the verge to say, well, and I was cussing too. Like my friend Greg, I was like cussing. I was going, get, and just lighting things up. You got a train coming, my man. There, you all right? You stationary?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Where are you right now? Let me guess where you are. You are at, hold on. You are on Bluff, right next to the White River.
No, actually in Whiteland. I was heading to pick my kids up for a few hours. And I get every other Thursday with my kids for 6 hours, so I was picking them up. And I was like, I've been listening to you guys for the last 10-plus years, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give them a call. I'm on the road. And then I
appreciate that, Doug. Thank you very much, man. And you're going to be sitting there for a while because is that train going northbound or southbound?
It's going north.
Yeah, so it's going back to its place, its residence right there. So that's going to be a minute for you.
Yep. And then also I wanted to know, do you think we're going to be able to keep Obi Toppin?
I think Obi Toppin is going to be here forever because I don't want to have to deal with my mom if they end up letting him go someplace else. All right? We can't have that.
Yeah, I met him at the meet and greet last year. He's a good dude.
He is, yeah. Listen, he is the perfect player and teammate for this group. I don't know why in the world, with what he does, what he offers, you would want him to go anyplace else. Agreed.
For sure. I just knew that there might be some contract issues, so I didn't know.
I think he signed a 2-year deal, I think, here this past year, so he's got another one. James, check out how many years he's got. I thought he's just signed a 2-year deal, so I think we're good to go. I'll fight that fight a little bit later on because I don't want to see the dude ever leave. I think he's absolutely perfect for this team, and he is perfect for the community. He is an absolute, genuine, perfect fit.
I agree. Hopefully the Knicks keep losing, right? Let's get into that other spot if we can, and we can keep.
Oh
keep
yeah,
winning.
the Knicks are going haywire right now. Doug, man, thank you for the call. Appreciate that. James, contract info.
So on July 6, 2024, he re-signed with the Pacers on a 4-year contract.
4 years. He's going to be here forever. Hell, I'd be dead in 4 years. He'll still be here playing. Going to make G very happy. That's all that matters. Just make sure you make G happy. Because her being happy is the difference between her calling me, James, at 9 a.m. or 4:30 in the morning. Just, like, had the Pacers lost last night, it would have been a 4:30 a.m. pissed-off wake-up call from 79-year-old G, and I wasn't ready for it. All right, scoreboard update going on, including the round 2 opponent of the Purdue Boilermakers. This is a scoring struggle. 13-15 in the first half. McNeese 10-6 over Clemson. I'm telling you, there is a significant pathway to, I would guess, get Houston in the round of 16 in Indy, if you're Purdue. Significant pathway. I hate saying that, too, but I just see there's where you can get back at me right there. What kind of nerd says significant pathway? And that's me. 10-6 McNeese over Clemson. Under 13 to go in the first half. We'll keep you updated. Scoreboard update coming up. JJ, top of the hour. Buckets coming up at the bottom of the hour from Providence. Boilermakers a winner today over High Point. And we'll talk about those comments of Ryan Kelly in Minneapolis earlier today with Mike Chappell. 5 o'clock hour. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Oh, I love this day. Who's with me? It really makes me want to hoop tonight, but then if you hoop tonight, you got to miss some games. I don't want to do that. This is like one of the first nights where I go, you know what? I don't want to hoop tonight. I'd like to, but I'm not gonna. All right, under 3 to go, and the 1 seed Houston in major control. Yeah, the Ohio Valley champion was nicely nestled in and then unceremoniously disregarded here in this first-round matchup with Houston. 72-37 as they approach the end of that game in the Midwest region, round number 1. And going to the half right now, Auburn, the 1 seed, 39-38. Maybe a little bit more of a hassle with Alabama State, the 16 seed, than what Bruce Pearl and they'd all say that they knew it was going to be tough. But 8-point advantage as they near the half with the 1 seed Auburn and Alabama State right there. 12-6 McNeese over Clemson right now with 10 to go in the first half of play. That's the Midwest region 12v5 matchup. And, of course, we're just about set to get underway with some other matchups, too. All right, 4:05, that's VCU and BYU. 6 seed, 11 seed. And then the 8-9. This should be pretty good. You know, I mentioned this, too. This Gonzaga team is reminiscent, as it was, and Boilermaker fans saw them twice a year ago. But you certainly saw them in the postseason, reminiscent of how Gonzaga looked last year, but probably even a little bit more down. Now, you know, Andrew Nembhard's brother, plays on that team, but probably not as good as it even was. It is not what you would want to call a vintage Gonzaga team. They go maybe 6, sometimes 7 deep, and that's basically it right there, even if it's that much. Gonzaga, Georgia, the 8-9 affair coming up at 4:35. That swing early evening matchup, 2v15 on TNT, Midwest region. The Tennessee Volunteers and Wofford underway tonight at 6:50. As I mentioned, too, Pacers back at it, getting a win that we would be cussing everybody out about today, but alas, we did not have to. Pacers come back with a 135-131 win over Dallas last night. Dallas going 8 deep. Didn't matter. I mean, that didn't matter. At the end of it, it didn't matter. What mattered was losing to that wreck. That's what mattered. Yeah, the point spread didn't matter. The defense down the stretch, you know, everybody getting on Siakam up until he made those 2 big defensive plays. None of that mattered. The missed free throw, the missed shots by Nembhard, that didn't matter. They made up for it. Now, granted, I'm with you. I would love to see this Pacer team be better than that, more consistent than that, not put themselves in that situation. As Rick Carlisle said after the game, you cannot continue to live like that. Now, I will say this. You were forced into living like that, and that was a plus on Monday night in Minneapolis. You were forced to live like that a week ago against Milwaukee, and your star made a play at the end of the game. This was different. This falls in the category of a lot of what we know about this team. And, man, I'm right there with you. I wish there was some way that they could shake it loose. Because it is disturbing. And you sidestep it and you move on to tonight against Brooklyn tonight, and then Brooklyn back here again. That's a 5 o'clock start coming up on Saturday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Actually, this is the second of 4 straight. Dallas last night with a win. Brooklyn tonight. Brooklyn back on Saturday. And then Minnesota. Well, 5 straight. I'm sorry. Minnesota and the Lakers. Monday and Wednesday of next week. I said it was going to be good. Very important to take advantage of this opportunity. Meantime, the Knicks look like they're a mess, and the Bucks are going out west. Take advantage of it. 10-point advantage, McNeese over Clemson right now. See, I don't want Clemson to lose this because I like Brad Brownell, and I know everybody out there will make fun of Brad Brownell. I don't think there's any reason to make fun of Brad Brownell. But there's no doubt that will happen if Clemson loses this, even if a lot of the dorks ended up picking McNeese in the first place in this 5-12 matchup. 18-8, under 9 to go, first half of play. The winner gets Purdue in round number 2 in Providence coming up on Saturday. Bobby Buckets, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour from Providence. From the Boilermaker Radio Network, Bobby Riddell joins us about today's Boilermaker win over High Point. We got that still to come. We got Mike Chappell after 5. I got tickets to give away. Brothers tomorrow downtown with Bud Light. Mini Hoops Mania. We're going to find ourselves a champion. I believe our good friend James Tony Donahue is a part of that coming up tomorrow too. Brothers downtown. We'll watch games. Actually, I'm going to hit up Prime 47 with Jake before, and then I'm going to roll down to Brothers after. So, 6 hours of hanging out with you. And you guys will never tire of me. At least for the first 5 minutes. So tomorrow's going to be a nice day for us on the road. Jake's at Prime 47. I'm at Brothers downtown with Bud Light. That is coming up tomorrow. Meantime, the second of a back-to-back for the Pacers tonight against Brooklyn. From Pacers Television, Jeremiah Johnson is set to join us next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. I'm attracted to basketball dudes.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, man, stop that. I say a lot of crazy-ass stuff for 3 hours a day. Actually, if there's anybody that has to wear stuff like that, it would be me. That's funny. Thank you, James. Here's what's not funny. Clemson can't score. Clemson, offensively right now, looks like a media pickup game at Hinkle Fieldhouse 10 years ago on a Tuesday afternoon with Phil B. Wilson playing the pivot for our next guest on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. From Pacers TV, Jeremiah Johnson. When you got matched up with Phil B. Wilson, this looks like an offensive output type of performance that we would have witnessed back then.
That was a blast from the past. Got a good chuckle out of that one. I love Phil B. So
I do
no
too.
slander,
no, I do too. No, there's no
coming
slander. He was fired. Were you not the other time when he was in the low post? He was posted up, and believe me, he had some room. He created some room, and nobody was going to post feed him. And he got pissed, and he took his glasses off and threw them at the backboard. And literally,
I vaguely remember that. I mean,
this was like
memory was.
Yeah, this was an early pickup. This is like early in the game. It wasn't like late in the game where this has happened a bunch. It literally just had. He was pissed off early. True story.
So was it the same game that Hagan threw the mouthpiece?
It might have been. I can't tell if Hagan's throwing a mouthpiece or he has got the worst looking jump shot in the. How in the world has he lived in this state for so long and have that broke-ass looking jumper? Seriously.
Hey, if you're not born in Indiana, it's just not natural. Even if you live here for a long time, you just don't get it.
Nah, he looks like a carny, like at the Johnson County Fair, shooting on one of those oblong goals. It's weird.
Awesome.
It is really, really weird. By the way, as I mentioned, too, the lack of offense, Brad Brownell's 5-seed Clemson through, what is it now, James? We're approaching the 15-minute mark of clock time, has all of 8 points. 8 points in 15 minutes here in the first half. They trail McNeese by 15. The winner gets Purdue on Saturday. And I like Brad Brownell a great deal. But he's going to take a lot of heat for this offensive performance, at least so far. There's no question.
Kind of like San Diego State in the play-in tournament game. I was watching a little bit of that one, and it was they were offensively challenged. But you knew that going in. I thought Clemson, even though I didn't watch a lot of ACC basketball this season, I thought their offense was a little better than this.
I'm going to see right here. Clemson just knocked down a 3. I'm going to see if they can score half of their output in 15 minutes. Over half of that in the next 35 seconds. We'll see if that happens, JJ, right here. That's amazing about basketball to me. You know what else is amazing? Last night, it's funny. I think one thing that was overused last night was probably the F-bomb with Pacer fans, especially in that fourth quarter. The other thing was the delete key when that game ended. Because you got to give credit where credit is due. The Pacers made defensive plays, big shots, got it done. But I'd be damned if I wish they would not at least consistently put themselves in that type of situation.
Yeah, it was an unusual game like that because the Pacers actually did get off to a really good start. They were playing good defense, and you don't always know what to expect with a team like Dallas coming in. You mentioned it, 8 players and seemingly going the wrong direction. And the way they started, I thought, okay, they don't really have it tonight because that first quarter, it didn't feel like the Mavs had any sort of intensity, but it just took 2 or 3 guys really catching fire. And these are the kind of guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, like Hardy, like P.J. Washington that still have a lot of pride and they have a lot of offensive skills. And even if this may not be a season where you're contending for a championship, they like to score points, and the Pacers at times, as we have noted, have struggled against some of those kinds of scorers. And once those guys got hot, the Pacers really had a hard time stopping them. And it was weird in that fourth quarter. I thought the Pacers could get back into the game if they just could string together some stops, and there were just no stops. I mean, how many times have you seen a game where you look at the box score when it's over, and there were 85 points scored in the fourth quarter? The Pacers could get could get a basket on almost every possession or free throws for Benedict Mathurin. They just couldn't get enough stops until they put in on that full court press, and a couple of steals were the difference.
Well, you think about it, too. They went small, subbed out Miles, went to Obi, and then we even went smaller when they subbed out Obi and went to Shepherd. So you saw Rick Carlisle trying to match up the lack of size that Dallas was utilizing and scoring at will offensively. And you might look at that. The two defensive plays by Siakam, and believe me, before that time, he was getting worked. And then that made three by Nembhard after missing a free throw and some other shot opportunities that were wide open. Those are difference makers, but I thought Rick's decision on how to play Dallas down the stretch defensively also was huge.
Yeah, really early in the fourth quarter, he was very frustrated. And I think if you have Miles out there and he's not maybe locked, he's not having a really good game, you want him to take advantage of where Dallas is weak. And it wasn't happening. And we've seen and had this discussion on your show about how much better Miles is when Tyrese Halliburton is on the court. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, his numbers last night were a direct result of Tyrese Halliburton not playing. But in that fourth quarter, when things were going awry, they got some offensive rebounds. So if you're not going to win the rebounding battle or really do a good job defensively, you might have to play more of a full court game. And if you're going to play that kind of game and get up and down and run and push the pace, then you have some other guys that can help you. So I was talking with Pat Boyle about it as the game was winding down, because when they couldn't get any stops and guys were just going to the basket, I was wondering if there was a place to get Miles back in there, because any one of those guys that I mentioned was beating a pacer off the dribble, and then there was no one there for rim protection. And we know that Miles can provide that, although there might have been no one for him to guard inside because they were playing sort of a 5-out as well. So I can understand the decision and the style change, and I'll give a lot of credit to the coaching staff too. When they were coming from behind, they were very vocal in some of those different situations, because there were times you needed to foul. There were times you needed to not foul. And that last defensive play, Mike Weiner was up screaming to everybody, including the officials, telling them, go for two traps, then foul, because there was 27 seconds, I believe, on the game clock, 24 on the shot clock. You could not play that possession out without a timeout and still have a shot to go down and tie or win. But they wanted to go for that steal first. Everyone was aware of it, and Pascal Siakam got that steal, and the rest is history.
Well, look, man, Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, Pacers Nets, second of a back-to-back coming up later on tonight. You can catch JJ and company on the television broadcast. A couple of things I want to mention right here, and one is I think – desperate times call for desperate measures, and that's where the Pacers were when they challenged that foul call on Mathurin that had him sit. That was his sixth and final. You knew that was desperation mode right there, because you knew that was not going to be overturned.
Yeah, it was weird, because the one angle that you look at, the lower level angle, I thought, there's not a very good shot of that getting overturned. And then the camera that's above the basket, I wasn't even convinced that he did touch his arm. And some of the things that they've been, saying, if you touch the ball first, what happens after that maybe doesn't matter. So I kept going back and forth. As I saw the replays, I was probably 60-40. It would not get overturned. But you're right, time score situation. Yeah. They do a really good job. And, again, I'll mention Mike Weiner again. I feel like he has a calculator in his head, because he knows all of the risk-reward situations, and also is aware sometimes whether to make a challenge if the Pacers are able to retrieve the basketball and have possession. So if you win the challenge, it's that much more impactful. So I don't think they would have made that except for the situation that they were in. And then there were a couple of angles where you could have considered it. But the way that officiating crew, they were kind of getting talked to a lot over the course of the game. If it's close, the guy that makes the call isn't going to say he made the bad call. He makes the call right there on the floor. He's not. It's got to be pretty conclusive for him to say, "Yep, we made a mistake."
Well, I mean, Mather got him on the wrist or the elbow or whatever. It was somewhere in the vicinity between the elbow and the wrist of the forearm, and there was, like, even if it was a grazing, they are going to back up. They're going to uphold that call, right? I mean, that's just the way that See, it's funny. I'm going to go back to Monday night with you for a second, because we haven't talked since that incredible win in Minneapolis Monday night. But I had sent this out on X Monday night. I thought Mike Conley flopped on that so-called Nembhard elbow to his grill. I thought he flopped, and then I thought he acted and played it out. And I thought what that did was kind of escalate the situation with Numbnuts and Nembhard, and then Nembhard got tagged with his second technical. And obviously, that was certainly more detrimental to the Pacers' effort than it was losing the big doofus for Minneapolis from Gobert. So I thought that all started with Conley. And the reason why I tell you that is because he did it twice. He flopped a couple of different times prior to that. There was really nothing ever conclusive that we saw the reason why he acted in the fashion in which he did. So I thought that was one that it certainly ended up escalating a situation that in that case did not need to be escalated.
No arguments here. It was a couple of weeks ago when there was a flopping violation called, and now I can't remember exactly when the game was. Actually, I think it favored the Pacers, and it actually didn't even look that egregious upon replay. So I don't know when an official gets it in his head that he's going to look for that and potentially call that, but I do agree with you that Mike Conley Jr. exaggerated a little bit, and I don't think of him normally as that kind of a player, but it did cause the reaction from the gentleman in the middle that you had a couple of nice descriptions for. And I will agree with you 100%.
Oh, he's a huge numbnuts. He's a huge numbnuts. Huge.
Okay. Words I won't use on the broadcast, but yeah. I did tweet out that it was going to affect the Pacers much more than it would affect the Timberwolves. And again, I know he's a good defender, but they can play a different style without him on the court. And I just thought 1-for-1, that was a trade that benefited Minnesota and hurt the Pacers. And there were a few people that came back at me and like, yeah, he's a 4-time defensive player of the year. Nobody knows anything about Nembhard. And I said, well, I'll stand by it if Pacers maybe don't need overtime if they had Nembhard on the court that whole time. So that was given the situation, that hurt. And I mean, that's what made that game so much more enjoyable, is just against all odds. When you consider 4 starters, your 5th starter is ejected, and your 6th man, who is doing everything for you, fouls out. And how many times we don't see foul outs very often in the NBA? I mean, guys get to 4 or 5 and they're smart about it, or, they just don't get that 6th foul called. So to have all of those things happen and still win that game, it was great, and that's why it was so much more.
JJ, you disappeared on me right there. There you're back. Sorry about that. And the other thing is, I've watched enough because they're on TV everybody's on TV every night, but I've watched so much nationally of Minnesota. They look like they enjoy playing more when he's not playing. His teammates look like that. So that's why I felt at the time that was incredibly detrimental. By the way, you mentioned Miles and Tyrese together. Evan Sidery had this earlier today, maybe it was even yesterday, that Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner plus 22.9 net rating, the best two-man lineup since the All-Star break in the NBA, would be those two. And I have said all along that as much as I like Miles, he is so dependent upon the presence of Tyrese Halliburton, and I'm sure he's smart enough to understand that, but it is drastically different when Tyrese isn't out there, and it starts with 33.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton impacts everyone, and we give Andrew Nembhard a lot of credit, but he's a different kind of point guard, and he's going to get his teammates involved, but he's probably going to look for his shot, especially in the lane as a jump shot, a little bit more than Tyrese Halliburton will, or maybe a game starts and it's less about getting everyone else involved. He's just playing basketball, and that's sort of his style. So I think there's an adjustment that has to be made for Miles Turner in those games. I think it's something that you can't have good games when Halliburton doesn't play, but the numbers do speak for themselves. And the other thing that I will add is, Miles he missed Monday's game, and a lot of people thought it was just a convenient rest time for all 4 of those starters. Aaron Nesmith had been playing a lot. He may be the one that was in best condition to play on Monday. But Miles Turner really had been favoring the hip for a couple of games, hadn't really said anything about it. And so maybe he's not still 100% after what we saw last night. I'll be interested to see Miles, though. He's a proud guy, and to not be on the court there in the fourth quarter when the Pacers were making that run. I think he'll be ready to bounce back.
Well, yeah. Listen, he had his ass up, and he was backing up his dudes. So and I look for that stuff. I don't want to see any pouting or any whining or crying. I don't know about you, but I completely understood what Rick was trying to do late. And you don't want to have to match up with a team that has 8 dudes deep in a game like that, where you're so much favored. But that was the circumstance there. And I thought Rick did the right thing, subbing out Miles for Obi. And then I thought he did the right thing about subbing out Obi for Shepherd of those moments late, too.
Yeah, I mean, hard to argue with what they were able to pull off down the stretch. They could have done a little bit better job defensively, so that's the thing. It worked offensively. The full court press, though, was what they needed to do, and that was the lineup that was best suited to handle that. And I'll echo your sentiments about the pouting. I could tell Miles was frustrated and disappointed, but each time that he came out, and there were about 2 different times, I specifically watched him, and he had a conversation with Rick Carlisle, and I could sense some personal frustration, but it wasn't the kind of like, I'm going to listen and roll my eyes as I walk back to the bench. I think he was just a little disappointed with himself that he wasn't more effective. But like you said, as soon as he went to the bench, he was talkative in those huddles.
He was engaged.
Cheering his guys on.
Yeah.
So, you know what? That's what you want. You want a coach that does everything he can to help your team win the game, and you got to make sure you can coach without feelings getting hurt. And that's a little bit part of that continuity that we've talked about a lot this season. Is kind of paying off. These guys know the situation. They're going to try to win every game, and it's a clean slate tonight against Brooklyn.
Well, true story. As much as I support Miles, and I always have and always will, that would piss me off. And if you remember, you go back to that Miami home game, which was an embarrassing loss months ago now, he had mentioned that after the game, he didn't like his attitude at that moment. So he's recognized that in the past. That's how you grow and mature. And I specifically watched for that on the sideline, and he remained engaged, and that's exactly what you want.
I do too, and it's a little bit delicate when everyone is healthy. Now, the Pacers last night had everyone but Tyrese Halliburton, but we know they have 11 guys that really should and could be in a regular rotation. So there's always probably going to be one that does not play, and there may be another one or two that thinks he should be playing more minutes, and they're going to ride the hot hand. So then there may be a different rotation in late, and that's where the communication is so important. And it's not just Rick Carlisle, but it's that whole staff. It's Jenny Busick, it's Mike Weiner, it's Lloyd Pierce, Jim Boylan. All those coaching staff members do a good job of, instructing, but then picking people up when they may be down a little bit on themselves.
So Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Pacers and Brooklyn coming up tonight, second of a back-to-back at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Go down and enjoy that. My mom called me this morning, and there's always a big difference. Had the Pacers lost last night, it would have been a 4:30 wake-up call. Instead, it was around 9, so I appreciate the Pacers coming from behind and winning that in the fashion in which they did. But when she called, she wanted to know what type of dialogue that TJ has on the bench with Jenny. And I couldn't quite explain it. I've sat down there because I do more than watch the game. I like to listen when I sit down there. And you've seen me down there before. I just kind of sit there and listen to what is being said in the huddles, or at least try to listen. But you do consistently see TJ on the bench with Jenny talking about things. What type of dialogue do they have there?
Well, Jenny, I think, is a believer that shooting is 2 parts. It's the physical and it's the mental. And she has worked with both Andrew Nembhard, TJ McConnell, and maybe a couple of others on working with their form at times, changing that up a little bit. But she also understands that confidence is a big part of it as well. And TJ is someone that does wear his emotions on his sleeves, and you can tell sometimes when he's just not feeling as confident with stepping into those 3-point shots. And we've had this discussion, too. Sometimes I think it's when he's not guarded at all, when they're 15 feet away from him, that it's harder for him to pull the trigger. It's almost better when somebody's at least running at you a little bit or has a hand up, and then you're maybe ready to shoot it. So some of those conversations, they're not about, put your hand here, do this. It's, TJ, you can make it. We believe in you, and picking him up a little bit. So I don't know specifically the circumstance that you're talking about, but I do know that there's a lot of that positive reinforcement that comes along with it. And she's not someone, it's one thing for a coach to say to a youngster, we believe in you, she's not going to say something that isn't accurate as well. So she's not blowing smoke to TJ McConnell. She's seen him. She's worked with him. And she's just trying to get him to know he can do it, because if they're not going to guard him, it affects everything else if he doesn't shoot that shot.
My mom's a big fan of Jenny, and I think she more noticed that in that Minnesota game because he was out of the game. I'm sorry, he was actually in, and I thought that they were talking about something defensively, and you could tell TJ was a little demonstrative in his expression, and that I think that's what she was referring to, and then kind of played off of that last night, because they do have so much dialogue at the bench. It's kind of interesting to wonder what's being talked about.
Well, I'll add to that. If that's a specific defensive question, she's calling out a lot of the sets and the sort of the defensive attack, and so there maybe at times could have been a little miscommunication in terms of switches and traps. And again, TJ is pretty comfortable to come back, and whether it's a calm conversation or a demonstrative one, he can have that, and they can have that with each other. So not just Jenny doesn't only work with shooting. She's very important to that defense, and so that might have been what your mom was referring to on Monday night.
Yeah, and she notices everything. But again, if they would have lost that last night, it would have been a 4:30 in the morning wake-up call for me. So luckily they won, and it came at 9. So that part is good. Hey, is Tyrese back playing tonight? What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to say. With everything I've heard from the coaches, I do think there's a real goal to make sure that you're not dealing with this issue in the middle of April. And right now it's, towards the end of March. And so you have this opportunity to just be careful. And while every game is important as you're going for that 4 seed, I would rather have Tyrese Halliburton 100% healthy with the 6 seed than have him out with the 4 seed. So they do need to see the big picture. There is, a case can be made. Everything he's dealing with is somewhat connected, because he's had a groin, he's had a hip, and he's had a back, and they're all kind of connected. And I see him when he's out of the games on the nights that he's playing with the bandage wrap all over him and the heat pack. And he did tweak it in that game against Milwaukee. I saw it, the coaches saw it, and they reacted to it. So they're going to be better safe than sorry. If he's out there, he's absolutely 100%. If not, they're going to try to make it to where he is before he gets back on there on the court.
All right, 4 straight after last night's home date coming at home. Got Brooklyn tonight, the second of a back-to-back. That's a 7 o'clock start, so 6:30 coverage begins here on the Fan later on tonight. Saturday, Brooklyn back here again, and then you've got Minnesota and the Lakers to close it out. So legitimate opportunities, and you'll see him on TV, a part of Pacers television. Jeremiah Johnson on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. And we'll do it again next week, man. Tell him, again, no faltering tonight, because I want to be able to sleep in a little bit tomorrow, okay? Seriously.
Yeah, I think you should tell your mom. Maybe if there is a loss in the next, few games, you need to call her after the game ends to just get that out of the way and tell her it'll be okay. Go ahead and sleep in the next day.
Yeah, I don't initiate that stuff, buddy. Let me tell you. There's no way. Like, after the Obi game on Monday night, she called me screaming. I thought I was going to have to call the paramedics. I go, what?
Well,
yeah. And then I thought, okay, well, this is about Obi. So.
All right, here's what I think you need to have her do the next time a game's, in that situation. Just have her set her phone out and record her. We may get some reactions.
Oh, God.
We can go viral.
People want her on here, and I go, that's like the last thing in the world anybody wants, is that. Please.
All right. Well, I listen to the Bill Simmons podcast a lot, even though I know he's Boston-centric. He has his dad on 2 or 3 times a year, and it's not bad listening. I think maybe you need to try that segment.
Yeah. I don't know about getting Cheryl on here. I don't know how that would work.
What about you at your Anything Goes hour? Why don't you do it on Anything Goes?
Even worse. Yeah. We're setting the stage for something catastrophically awful, probably. So, yeah. Anyway, hey, we'll get away from that and talk about you on TV later on tonight, and we'll be watching. So I appreciate you as always, JJ.
You tell your mom, and I want to say to anyone else out there watching that sets their alarm and watches every single game, that we appreciate you, and we'll be here for you tonight.
She doesn't miss a second, man. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
That's Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Boilermakers a winner. They await the winner of McNeese and Clemson. McNeese up 18 at the half. Clemson has 13 first-half points. Buckets on the other side. The Game Call, Boilermaker Radio Network. Bobby Riddell is next. The AAA Membership Lounge. Become a AAA member today. Join the lounge as well. It's 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
the holy hand grenade of Antioch. Right. 1, 2, 5. 3, sir. 3.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Brothers Downtown coming up tomorrow. Bud Light and the Mini Hoops Mania going to send somebody to a championship. So, yeah, join me tomorrow. We'll watch games, mini hoops, drink many beers. Prior to that, Prime 47, I'm going to slide by and see Jake at Prime 47 for their watch party tomorrow. Who's with me on that? Let me say this. If you're with me, meet me right here on the circle, and we'll roll down and go to both places. What do you guys think? Tickets to give away, Cindy Lauper's coming this summer to Raw Music Center. And then in September, the Outlaw Music Fest. Sheryl Crow, Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, among others. Tickets to give away coming up. Mike Chappell on the way as well. JJ on the podcast, 1075thefan.com. Pacers, second of a back-to-back against Brooklyn at the Fieldhouse coming up later on tonight. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, round number 1 goes to the Boilermakers over High Point, 75-63. And from the Boilermaker Radio Network, the former guard, we reference him as Buckets. Bobby Riddell joins us now from Providence, Rhode Island. Hello, Bobby. How are you?
Hey, JMV, I'm doing well. Happy to be in a great mood post-victory.
Absolutely. I never felt, even though some Boilermaker fans were sending me X messages and all nervous and, hey, it's tight, and Purdue's only up 3 at, the 8-minute mark of the second half or whatever, I never felt that High Point was much of a threat because they could not string together makes, and they were absolutely being dominated on the glass, especially the offensive board. So I thought that was much different than some of these other situations that Boilermaker fans maybe have a little PSD from in the past.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it felt like for the most part we had complete control of that game. There was certainly some times there in the second half.
I think it's PTSD, by the way. Did I say PSD? Hell, I don't even know what I'm talking about, Bobby. You probably wonder what are you talking about. What is it? Hold on a second, Bobby. Before you answer that, James, what is it called again?
It's PTSD for post-traumatic stress disorder.
So I just said post-stress disorder, which could be the same.
Yeah, it might work.
All right. Well, just know that I'm a dumbass. Go ahead, Bobby.
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a situation where they got it close there a couple times, but we always seem to kind of make a big shot or get a big stop before it ever got a little bit too dicey. And I feel like that's kind of shows some of our experience and some of our capabilities with our big-time players, Braden and Trey in particular, stepping up in those big moments. But, just like any win, you usually get contributions from lots of different guys, and we were able to do that tonight as well, getting some big contributions from some of the other players as well.
Yeah, obviously, Trey Kaufman-Renn was consistent throughout the game and even battling a little bit of foul difficulties. Braden had a good first half, but you got to locate Fletcher Lawyer because they're going to need they got it from Cam Huddy. He goes for 11 points, and really I thought they got some nice bench play at times from guys, but you got to find a little bit of something more than just the offensive output that they got from Lawyer today.
No, for sure. I would agree. I think some of it was just the way the game unfolded. He didn't really get a ton of clean looks, and give High Point credit for that. They certainly made a conscious effort, it felt like, to take away some of his scoring opportunities. But I think to continue to go far in this tournament, we're certainly going to need some games from Fletcher where he steps up and is a big time scorer for us, and hopefully it comes as soon as Saturday.
Yeah, Cam Huddy, I thought off the bench, 31 minutes of play, and I thought when he was out there, you could tell that there was a difference happening. He did some things, and did some things, especially you mentioned 19 offensive rebounds, as I brought up, and in his 31 minutes, he had 4 of those.
Yeah, I thought we were so active as a whole with the team, just flying around, dominating the glass, and Cam was a big part of that for sure. He's really finished the season on a high note, starting to play some really good basketball. That's definitely coincided with him shooting the basketball better as well, which I think has, of course, led to him getting extended minutes and more opportunity. And, yeah, we're just a different offensive team when he's out there, the additional spacing and shot making he provides. And, then when he's able to fly around defensively and get loose balls and grab big rebounds, he's able to, not have a big drop-off from that perspective as well, too. So, we've been playing some good basketball with him in the game, and it was great to see him show up. He seems to be enjoy playing in March Madness, as he's done really well now these last couple of years playing in March.
In Providence, Rhode Island, it's Bobby Riddell from the Boilermaker Radio Network, kind enough to join us after the Purdue first-round win over High Point on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So besides Fletcher playing better offensively, getting more opportunities, being more of a factor offensively, give me a couple of other things you think needs to improve before that second-round matchup, whether it's McNeese or Clemson coming up Saturday.
Yeah, I do think Braden Smith and his efficiency is something that definitely needs to improve. From the field today, just didn't have one of his better shooting games. And I think sometimes when he starts to struggle from a shooting standpoint, he gets a little passive and then he forces some passes into tight windows that are sometimes, or in situations where I think he should just shoot the ball. But since he's been struggling a little bit, I think maybe he second guesses himself. Granted, Braden Smith is all Big Ten Player of the Year, All-American for a reason. Like he's a stud in his own right. So he, hard for me to question him, but I do think that does happen on occasion. And I think for him in this next round, we're going to need a more efficient performance from him shooting the basketball. And he doesn't very often have too many poor showings shooting the ball in a row. So it's been two kind of tougher games for him shooting the ball these last two games. So hopefully we're in store for a big-time Braden Smith shooting performance.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of those threes go down more consistently than they did today. 5 of 15, which is good for 33%. And you'd like to see there's some opportunities that I thought, Bobby, were really clean that Purdue didn't take advantage of throughout that game, really.
No, I'm with you. I mean, there was like 3 Miles Colvin threes that from our vantage point all looked really good, right on line.
And they got offensive board work out of every miss, I think, of those too, by the way.
That's true. We were super active on the glass, and that covered up some of the poor shooting. And then we also won the turnover battle. I mean, if we play McNeese, which is the way things are trending at the half, ball security is going to be paramount. These guys are out there flying around like crazy. Junkyard dogs, you would say, as far as this McNeese Cowboys team is. And you got to be secure with the ball. You can't, add fuel to their fire by turning it over and letting them get out in transition and hang on rims and things of that nature. They're going to be a team that crashes the offensive glass like big time. They don't run a ton of great offense, it appears, but I mean, those guys are active and they're getting to every loose ball. That was what was something was so great for us today is we were extremely active, getting to a lot of loose balls, getting those offensive rebounds. So it's going to be an interesting matchup if we play McNeese because, I do feel like Clemson's been getting a lot of quality looks as well, but just not able to cash them in. And probably some of that is due to just, the pressure and the anxiety and some of the stuff that McNeese has done to them. They're probably not very comfortable out there. But I think, they're a team that if you can handle their pressure, you could get some quality looks.
So Bobby Riddell, Boilermaker Radio Network. Time to be determined on Saturday in Providence. Still, McNeese and Clemson still. Man, I'm telling you what, 20-point advantage for McNeese right now. Clemson is an absolute offensive mess. So obviously some of these matchups is kind of interesting. How do you look at a little bit of the description so far, Bobby, on looking at McNeese? That matchup, we'll start right there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch as far as their style versus ours. There's definitely, Clemson, like you said, with their struggles right now, it definitely doesn't look optimal to have to face them. But, last year in the first round of the NCAA tournament, a very skilled, talented offensive team in Gonzaga was able to blow them out and handle them. So it definitely can be done. I think it's just going to require, great ball security and great execution. And then you got to be able to step up and make shots when you get good looks.
I think they have, at least in watching them, have the personality of their coach. And you can say what you want about Will Wade, but they press the issue on the court and force you to doing things you don't want to do and out of your comfort zone. They force the officials to make calls. They are very physical, and to me, that's the personality. That's the approach of Will Wade. It's like they take on his personality.
I couldn't agree more. They are extremely physical. They fly around. Like you said, they really put the onus on the officials early from the jump to see how, the officials are going to call the game. And I think, that's obviously always plays a huge role. It probably would behoove Purdue if they played McNeese to, have a game where the whistle was called a little tighter, just because McNeese is going to be extremely physical, bumping and grinding out there. So that part will be fascinating. But you're right. I mean, these guys are just out there flying around, and they've made Clemson, from my opinion, they just seem to make Clemson really indecisive.
And they look soft. Clemson looks incredibly soft to me right now, and I think that's how McNeese wants you to look.
Yes, I do think if you play passive against that McNeese team, which is part of what they want you to do, they pressure it, they ramp you up. They either want to speed you up or they want you to get really passive and decisive. And if you're second-guessing yourself out there against those guys, I mean, you're just in big trouble.
All right, well, hang out. You and Rob go out and get you a little bit of crab or something later on tonight. Seafood? Is that on the agenda?
Yeah, get some good seafood if we can while we're out here. Had some good Italian last night. They got a cool little area where they got a bunch of different Italian restaurants. And I'm glad we get to enjoy Providence for a couple more days.
Yeah, well, hey, don't let Blackburn get all loose. He's a little bit of a wild child right there, so don't let him get all loose.
Total
all right?
wild man.
Yeah, you gotta keep him down just a little bit. All right, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate you. We'll be listening coming up on Saturday. Enjoy it, whomever the competition is.
Awesome. Thanks, JMV. Appreciate having me on.
Got it. Bobby Riddell. It's Buckets at the Boilermaker Radio Network on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. McNeese is making, and this is just me watching this game through the first 25 minutes, they're making Clemson look incredibly soft. And they're physical, and they force the issue at every moment out there, including doing that with their physicality with the officials. And it's not like they're all big and strong, but they're all very incredibly athletic. And they force the issue on everything. Yeah, kind of like their head coach, or at least their head coach until their next loss. Quick break, we'll come back. Right top of the hour, Mike Chappell joins us. Ryan Kelly with some comments now as a new member of the Vikings about the end here and the final couple of seasons here. We'll talk about that and then some with Mike at the top of the hour. Brothers downtown tomorrow with Bud Light. Prior to my show at 3, you've got Jake at Prime 47 for Quarry and Company tomorrow from noon until 3 as well. So a big day with 2 shows on the road. I'll explain. Get your chance at free tickets coming up too, and your calls at 239-1070. That's on the other side. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. You guys want to go see Cyndi Lauper? Number 9 at 239-1070. Can do that on me. Ruoff Music Center. Thank you all, Live Nation, for that, too. Live Nation always trying to help us, help you get to the best shows out there, and have understood for years, as I've told them for years, that utilizing the sports talk format will hit every single genre you're looking for. We can do 80s music with Cyndi Lauper. We can do alternative rock with Bush from the 90s. We can do today. We can do country today. We can do 70s. It does not matter. The sports format is perfect for you, Live Nation. Thank you all for being great partners with us. And in turn, we like to give back to you. Number 9 at 239-1070. Going to see Cyndi Lauper. What should be a hell of a show coming up this summer at Ruoff Music Center. Tickets available right now, by the way. And a shout-out to Ruoff and really the area. There are tremendous shows happening. And I have heard this. I don't know exactly. I'll have to check with Matt. This time it's Goings, not Godbout, but maybe both ultimately. But I have heard there are going to be a number of shows in which I'll be doing this show live at Ruoff leading up to the show there. So a couple of different times this summer, some live shows at Ruoff, and hell, we'll be out meeting you, maybe give you some spots, some seats, all that, and then some. We got to thank our friends, I should say, Matt Goins, Matt Godbout at AAA for that. That will be a hell of a blast. What is not a blast is the type of afternoon that Clemson is having in Providence, Rhode Island right now. 45-27, down 18 to McNeese. 11-minute mark of the second half. Winner, which looks like it's obviously going to be McNeese right now against the Boilers coming up on Saturday in Providence in round number 2. Bobby Buckets, it's Bobby Riddell, the Boilermaker Radio Network, joined us a moment ago. All right, 6-minute mark, second half. Auburn, the 1 seed on cruise, 70-49 over the 16 Alabama State. Just about set for the half with VCU, the 11 seed, trailing BYU. Kind of a trendy selection is BYU. 37-28, 9-point advantage for BYU right now as they get set for the half. Is this an accurate score that I'm looking at right here? So 11:43 in the first half. Gonzaga 27-3 over Georgia. Is that a football score that somebody's sneaking in there? Is this accurate?
That seems accurate to me.
27-3. Georgia, in over 8 minutes of play, they've scored 3 points. Georgia, James, 1 for 11 from the floor. They've had 1 field goal. That's 1 2-point field goal, and 1 of 2 from the free throw line. 27-3. And hell, I had the audacity to say earlier, that's not like your typical Gonzaga team right here.
I'm just surprised that there's another team having a worse offensive performance than Clemson is right now.
So that's what you need Georgia and Clemson to like match up here in the toilet bowl like it's Gus Macker.
We need to get a split screen going of those two games on the TV right over here.
Get the toilet bowl happening here. 27-3 Gonzaga in the first half over Georgia. I mentioned Boilermakers a winner a little bit earlier today. Houston, the 1 seed, a winner over Edwardsville, 78-40. Wisconsin moves on to round 2, 85-66 over Montana. And Creighton at Rupp easily passed Louisville, 8-9 game right there, 89-75. We'll keep you updated on that. Mike Chappell on the other side. More tickets to give away. Do not go anywhere. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live and 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
On the stool because he's under 5 feet tall.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
No, thank you guys for joining us. Yeah, this is straight out of the 90s right here. The late, great James Dolores O'Riordan and the Cranberries. You a big Cranberries fan?
I'm not the biggest fan, but they're pretty good.
Zombie, zombie, zombie. What are the two other popular songs for the Cranberries? You know,
I have no idea.
Linger was their biggest. And I believe they had one called Ode to the Family, I believe. 3 in all. Major hits from the Cranberries.
Zombie's the only one I really know.
Dolores O'Riordan, you can tell. Turn this up. It's a spectacular voice. Passed away some years ago. Yeah, we got nothing but the 90s coming up on the JMV Takeover on Saturday night. 6 until midnight, all requests, 90s. All right, besides Pantera, don't give me Walk and Pantera because that has been requested and played before on Saturday night. Can you imagine the cringe that Sean Copeland gets if he were to tune in and there's Walk being played on his station?
You got to sprinkle in the heavy stuff every now and then. It's okay every once in a while.
So this is a true story right here. In the category of nothing but the 90s, No Vaseline by Ice Cube was requested. And I have a version of it. Unfortunately, the version of it, it's like every other word's bleeped. Like it's, I mean, even like the start of the song, it says, GD, you all said it. I mean, immediately it's bleeped. It's beep. It just starts with the beep.
Let's say it's an Ice Cube song. Like it's not that surprising.
Not all of them are that. I mean, you know, it was a good day is reasonable. Bop Gun is reasonable.
That's fair.
Yeah. Check Yourself is reasonable. It's just No Vaseline is completely unreasonable. It just like you just start with a beep right at the start.
Do you get requested for that one a lot?
Oh,
No
yeah.
Vaseline?
It's happened one time. And I listened to it and I go, I don't even know if we're getting anything out of this because it's just every other word.
I'll say you'd have to take out half the song, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and that's a lot of damn work from me,
is,
too.
Yeah.
That's
especially in that tight turnaround
Yeah.
if you got in the takeover.
Nothing but the 90s coming up on Saturday night, 6 until midnight. That station, if you've never heard it before, where have you been? That's the JMV Takeover on B105.7. It's funny, I was involved in this conversation that was going on Facebook with a lot of old school great radio voices and people that are still in it, like people across the hall. I know Jason was a part of it. Rob Kendall was a part of it. But, yes, talking about the necessity to have people like real voices and personalities on the radio. And that's something I've always said, and I've always said this too. I will occasionally tape if I have to because the person can't go between 3 and 6 on this show. But I'll be damned, I go live. We are live, local, and late breaking every day. There is no half-assing, and I call the voice tracking part and all that monetary savings BS that consultants hand down. No half-assing, and that's half-assing. So you're going to get me, love me or hate me, or you're indifferent. You're going to get me 6 days a week, 5 days right here, 3 until 6 on the Fan, and then 6 hours every Saturday night in studio. Because people say, man, you know what you do? You snuff out your entire weekend with 6 hours on Saturday night. Well, if I'm not in there, if I'm half-assing it with something voice-tracked on Wednesday, then it's a completely different show, so why would I waste my time? Why would I bother? And this is what we do. All requests Saturday night, live in studio. And again, we do something on Saturday that nobody does. And it used to happen all the time. It was every single night in radio. It was all requests. You call up and you hear your favorite song, and sometimes you hear your voice on the radio. That is every single Saturday night. B105.7. And we celebrate a catalog of the 1990s coming up this Saturday night. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, away from the first day of action of the tournament, Purdue a winner over High Point. They await the winner of Clemson and McNeese, and McNeese has been dominant in that first round matchup so far. We will be happy to report that stuck on 3 for a long period of time. It appears that Georgia now has scored at least 9 more, 30-12, under 8 to go in the first half of play. That's Gonzaga and Georgia in the first round. We'll get you updated on everything else. Pacers, Brooklyn coming up later on tonight. But Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. Are you watching the games, Mike?
Sporadically, my wife won't let me watch start to finish from 12 till 1 in the morning or whatever. So
Well, really? She won't let you?
Well, see, I understand which battles to fight, and trying to, as much as I'd love to watch, like Clemson get clocked, that's not a battle I'm going to fight. I'll wait a game later on. She'll go to bed about 8 o'clock, and then I can just sit there and watch games.
So
and back and forth.
So you're watching what? So you're watching what she wants to watch? Is that what you're saying?
Sort of.
Okay.
Sort of.
So what are you watching instead of?
When you get in a certain time, you understand which battles to fight. And right now, now I tell you, I do watch the scores, and if one gets close, I'll flip it, and she's okay with it. But I don't need to sit and watch Clemson getting blown out, which is kind of cool. That's a 12-5, isn't it? A 12 seed, a 5.
Yeah.
About every year there's a 12 that jumps up, and then to see a Georgia get cleaned is kind of cool. So yeah, but no, I pick my spots.
Well,
I've learned.
Maybe that's why I'm a complete failure here. So yeah, I do understand that. Now
and also what from your lead into this, where you don't half-ass it, so you full-ass it, correct? I mean,
I full-ass it. Yeah, my full ass is involved. Yes.
So take that however you will.
It is all of it. Every single ounce of my ass is involved with it. 6 days a week, right here too. You did bring up Clemson, and I'm disappointed. Not because the Boilermakers second-round matchup with McNeese, but just I like Brad Brownell from Evansville, DePaul, Hoosier dude, and this one leaves. Even if a lot of people out there pick McNeese in the first place, this one on any coach, on any program is going to leave a mark. That's unfortunate.
Right. Well, and that's what you hate. But you see, that's what's the good and the bad about the tournament. I just love, and I understand people how they have these the smaller schools who. I didn't know where High Point was. I had to go and look it up, North Carolina. And they got both their men and the women's team in.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yep.
But that's what I love to see. And the first play-in game or whoever it was, Alabama State or whatever, that's cool stuff. And then they're going to get rolled in their next game. But I just think it's kind of cool that these conference tournaments get in and maybe a team that no one knows where they're at or from, makes a shot at the end. That's what's so cool about the tournament. And then, after the first or second round, then the big boys play and establish themselves. So I love this time of year. There was a time, it's been several years ago, many years ago, where I went out to Vegas and I sat at, was it the ESPN cafeteria restaurant, whatever the heck it was, and I sat there in their old recliners for like 5 hours and just watched games on all the channels. So it's there's no better time. It really isn't for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, and pretty cool.
Well, that's what our good friend Jimmy Mad Dog Matus has done annually. He and a bunch of friends go out to Vegas and watch the first weekend out in one of those the booking lounges out there too. He is not only is he legendary for that, he's just legendary in general. But that's what he has done for years.
He's a Grover too, isn't he?
Absolutely, he's right over there by you right now. Legendary, absolutely legendary. His dog. He is. And I've said this before. I really probably owe him because I have patterned my entire self out of him. You know what I mean? Just being live and local and being involved and, being out there and hanging out. And I've always thought that he was a groundbreaker with that around here, and I've always patterned myself from him. He is right at the top of the list of guys that I do that with.
Well, we joke about all that, but, where you're from and it makes a difference. And I poke fun at Beech Grove, but it's a great city. It is, and there's good parts and bad parts, but it's great to be sort of proud of where you're from, and sure poke some fun at it, but be proud of where you are. What I've always loved about like Beech Grove is as long as you can get to 465 or 65 in like 5 minutes, you can get anywhere.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it, and born here and I'll die here. So I really enjoy it.
Say the same thing about Greene County. I love it, but I'll make fun of it. So just the way
we're allowed.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like when growing up, when my mom would get mad at me and she'd, Michael Allen, whenever they use the full name and the middle name, you're really screwed. And she could do it, but if the neighbor would complain about me, no, don't be doing that. That's when the old mom, the mother hen stuff comes up, and that's sort of how it is with where we're from. It's okay for us to do it, but because we really mean well most of the time. Although when Walmart does something stupid, I can make fun of that, and it's not meant in good humor. But I just think that most people who are from here for a long time, I know the Benners were from Center Grove.
Center Grove, yeah, me.
So it's just kind of cool when you're from here and you grew up here, and it's funny. My one negative is I can drive around the city. I can drive. But don't tell me to name the streets.
Really?
Downtown Georgia, Ohio. I don't know which ones are which, but I can drive them. But I don't know. I can't tell you which streets to go to. So that's a character flaw.
I believe that the infamous moment inside the Walmart in Beech Grove was like Southport folk, was it not? Yeah. They got into it.
So we get Southport to come here and tarnish Beech Grove, and there were a couple of sumo wrestlers, females, and Beech Grove gets the bad pub, and it's the Southport idiots, and they are idiots in Southport.
Oh man, I love it, love it. Beech Grove and Southport, a little 1-on-1 right there.
Oh, they used to kick our butts in high school, which it's. I mentioned on social media. I went to my son and grandsons went to Southport to watch Mount Vernon play Saturday. What a great arena. That's just a great place. It's like, and then they go to, I think Mount Vernon goes, my grandkids will be in the Mount Vernon system. I think they go to Newcastle this weekend. And as I remember it, Newcastle is just like a bigger Southport, the way it's constructed and everything is like down. Can't go this week, but hopefully we'll go to the state finals if Mount Vernon finds its way there. But it just brought back all those high school memories of when I was at Anderson and all that, and it was a great day to watch basketball. And that kid from Mount Vernon is pretty good. The one, is it Ertl?
Yeah, Luke Ertl is his name, yeah.
I had never seen any of these guys play, so you're watching warm-ups, and you could just tell who he was by the way he moved around, and, number 12. And so I miss that. But it always brought back great memories of my times in Anderson in the tournament and all that. But good luck to Mount Vernon. They play, I think, Jeffersonville, and I like to see Mount Vernon. I've got no ties to Mount Vernon, but other than the grandkids, but it'd be kind of cool to see them do it.
I want to keep it right here with basketball. Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. I also want to get to the Ryan Kelly comments with the media in Minneapolis earlier today in a second. However, you used to be a part of high school basketball when I don't know how much of a debate or argument you could have, but I would suggest it's at its best, and certainly in that area in Anderson. Because I
was there from 74 to 84.
That is the wheelhouse of absolute greatness and a time that unfortunately we'll never see again with, those high schools, those teams in Anderson, in Muncie, even with good teams out of Marion, that's not going to be the same. Newcastle, the North Central Conference, that you'll never see that again. And I never want to understate the level of greatness that you were a part of during those times.
It was just the right time. My first year there was like 84 or 74 is when I think Roy Taylor of Anderson was Mr. Basketball. And then every year we had Indiana All-Stars. We had Ray Tolbert, who won a Mr. Basketball when they didn't even win the sectional. but the Rick Lances and Jeff Garys and
Troy Lewis.
Troy, I tell you, the sweetest shooter I've ever seen, Troy Lewis. And again, that's when you stuck around a long time. One of the games in the semi-state, I think it was Anderson and Marion, and Blackman went for like 52.
Yeah.
And Troy had like 48. So that was a school record for Marion. And then his was it his son or grandson broke his record at Marion.
No, it was his son. He had two. He had James Blackman Jr. and then did he have two other sons too? VJ, I can't remember how. I thought two other.
But you stick around long enough.
Jalen and VJ, I think two others. Yeah.
Yeah, but Norm Held always got his teams just there, and they could never get over the hump, whether it was Connorsville or somebody beating them. But such great times, and the Scott Skiles and people like that you get to watch play, and again the all timer that things stick in your head and they never go away is the year that Roy Taylor and Tony Marshall were on the All-Star team. Was Larry Bird's year, I believe, unless he was the next year, and that's when Kirby Overman, they played at Hinkle and they were just beating the crap out of Kentucky. And Larry Bird hadn't played in the second half. And Kirby Overman says, "Hey, Larry, why don't you go in?" And Larry just kind of shrugged him off, and he wouldn't go in. One of the all-time great
what
moments.
Was that, 74? That was 1974, right, when Larry Bird was a senior. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, no, if I'm not good enough to go in, when it's a game, I'm not going in when we're going up 30 or 20, whatever it was. So, but, yeah, it's just a great time. And the Phil Bucks and Norm Held and Bob Fuller and people like that were really, really great. And the culture shock was when I came down here in my first year at the Star, and I covered maybe in the city tournament, I think, at Tech, and there were like 70 people in the stands. I'm thinking, really? This is what I'm getting into as far as high schools? But I forever call that the golden era of basketball. It was the NCC with Muncie Central, and like you said, Logansport, Lafayette Jeff,
Richmond,
Richmond,
Newcastle.
Yeah, it was amazing, and I miss it a little. I wouldn't want to go back and cover it again because covering, I think what Kyle Neddenritt does at the Star is amazing. He's the best high school writer in the country. He just is. So I was a bit, I enjoyed it. But I wouldn't want to do it again because you work your ass off covering high school basketball and football. Football more when you walk the sidelines and do your own stats in the rain. Yeah. That's not fun.
It's Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. All right, to football. I'm assuming you saw the comments of Ryan Kelly to the Vikings reporters earlier today. The quote was, we'll start right here, I think it was just time to move on. I think it was some frustrating times through certain years. Obviously, it's no surprise. I've had 13 different quarterbacks since I've been there. So I always envisioned myself playing in one place for my entire career. There was no negative impact or no major event that happened where it really pushed me over the edge. So we kind of knew that he felt that way upon leaving. But I thought he started out and he was really going to come pretty hard at it, and then he kind of backed away from that hardness a little bit in that quote.
That just wouldn't be him to take parting shots. It wouldn't. That's not who he is. And there probably would have been some reasons to take shots about, my career could have been so much more if they had gotten the quarterback situation straight and we weren't going from – because we always used to ask Ryan, well, so how many is it this year? How many quarterbacks is it here? And he'd tell us 9, 10. I'd say, can you name him? He said, sure I can. He didn't name him in order. He knew. So, yeah, I'm going to miss him. He was such – he's certainly not the player now that he was a few years ago, but he's still a good player. But at some point, you just have to move on, which they did. He knew this was going to happen, I think, last year. I mean, before this past season, going into the past season, that's the year that everybody got their extensions and new contracts, and he didn't. So he sort of knew. And he's still – the last time I talked to him about it or texted him about a month ago or so when all this was going to happen, he sort of indicated that Indy's home. Indy's going to be home with he and his family, Emma. and the kids that this is home, and so many players find that this is the really good place to raise your kids, whether it's Zionsville or Westfield or Brownsburg, wherever they're at. It's just a great place in the Carmel area. It's just a great place to raise your kids. But he was a great guy, and I tell you, when he first got here, he wasn't the greatest quote. He was kind of guarded, but through the years, he understood we had a job to do, and he was very thoughtful and insightful. And I know the fan base doesn't care that much about that, but when players understand there's a give and take, and we've got a job to do, and they give us as much insight as they can without giving away state secrets, it helps the fan base too to understand what's going on and why they do things and all this. So I'm going to miss him for a lot of reasons. I got to know him very well through the years, and just a classy guy. I would have been shocked if his comments would have gone the other direction because he went through some personal tragedy here, and the team stepped up, as most teams would. So good luck to him, and he's obviously going to play another couple of years, and that's probably it. But he has some really, really good years here, and it's just too bad that the team couldn't, for a lot of players, couldn't stabilize the quarterback situation, because as we've talked, when you're going from quarterback to quarterback year after year, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, we'll see if that is the path once again coming up this season.
Here we go again, right.
A lot to be determined. Hey, really quickly before I let you go, Mike, anybody that you think they may hard target here? I know the meat, I guess, if you will, of free agency is now gone, but any positional targets you think maybe the Colts might be after here late in the game?
No, I'm curious if they try to bring EJ Speed back. He's got to be disappointed that he's not gotten the type of interest he probably hoped. Whether he would come back here on a really, really, minimum, not minimum, but close to minimum contract, I don't know. Again, I know they had an interest in Trey Hendrickson. I don't know where the Bengals are with that now. And now they've given their receivers big contracts. The fact that the Colts signed Bynum and Ward, I'm not sure if they're still that interested in Hendrickson. I don't know. But no, they'll sign a couple other probably free agent guys like they have for depth. And then it's the draft. They got to transition to the draft, and boy, got to have a tight end. The tight ends, like we've talked about, it's a deficient room, and there's a chance to get you a tight end in the first round.
It's Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Really enjoyed the basketball and the high school basketball reminiscing as well. Yeah, we'll get back to a lot of stuff coming up next Thursday as well. Enjoy the rest of the weekend with basketball. Get that fill a hoop in, okay?
I'll get the wife to sleep about 8 o'clock. I'll put something in her dinner and get her to bed earlier.
You got it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
See ya.
It's Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. It is night number 2, back-to-back for the Pacers against Brooklyn, and no Tyrese Halliburton again tonight. Rick Carlisle has ruled out the Pacer guard for the matchup with Brooklyn coming up later on tonight. 7 o'clock the tip. 6:30 coverage begins with Pat Boylan right here on The Fan. The lead-up will be the Colts Daily Update in about 8 minutes of Anything Goes at the top of the hour. Outlaw Music Fest tickets before we're done here. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock, me, Brothers, Downtown, Bud Light. We're going to find a champion to go for the ultimate championship in Mini Hoops Mania coming up tomorrow. That's Brothers Downtown with our friends from Zinc and Bud Light beginning at 3. Remember 2 at noon, Jake with Query & Company live at Prime 47 for a watch party. I'm going to slide by that before I slide even further down to Brothers coming up tomorrow. I'd love to see everybody at Prime 47, and then we'll all just mosey on over to Brothers after that with Bud Light. Mini Hoops Mania. It is going to be an awesome day coming up tomorrow, and you can join it with us. Quick break. We'll come back. Your calls and more and some Anything Goes at the top of the hour and a scoreboard update. Again, no Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers tonight as he will sit it out against Brooklyn in the second of this back-to-back, and he didn't play last night either. Pacers, Nets tonight, Tip time, 7 o'clock, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, Boilermakers the winner earlier today. First round matchup with High Point. They await a winner, and they await, really, if it's not already been determined by the score right now. But McNeese, the 12 seed, about 90 seconds away from moving on with Will Wade. That's kind of their head coach. He's basically got one foot out the door on his way to NC State, but kind of the head coach of McNeese, up 9 over the 5 seed Clemson. Here's what's interesting about that, right? So in the first half, Brad Brownell's team, they score a total of 13 points. So far, with, again, 90 seconds to go or so in the game, they've scored 40 in the second half. So a lot different, but down 9 right now with a minute and a half does not look like they're going to get it done. And it looks like Purdue and McNeese for the right to head to the Sweet 16 here in Indy coming up next weekend. That's a Saturday affair in Providence, Rhode Island. Bobby Riddell a little bit earlier. That's Bobby Buckets who joined us. We talked about that game, the High Point game. As I mentioned at the start of the show, never really thought, even though things did get tight, at the 8-7 minute mark in the second half, Purdue held a 3-point lead, but I never felt that High Point was that much of a threat. And not that Purdue was stroking it or anything like that. It was that Purdue had absolute ownership of the glass. 45 total rebounds, 19 of which were on the offensive glass, and that was helpful considering they didn't really shoot it that great, especially from distance. Braden Smith had a really nice first half, not so much in the second. Trey Kaufman-Wren was clearly their most consistent player. Fletcher Lawyer has to be better offensively. He had 8 points in that win, but Cam Heide came off the bench to score 11. And not only 11 points, but among those 19 offensive rebounds, he had 4 of those. And it seemed like that oftentimes those were big moments. And they need somebody off the bench. They need Lawyer. And you watch this McNeese team, they come out at you full blast. They put the pressure on you. They put the pressure on your decision-making. And they put the pressure on the officials. Because they're not going to overwhelm you with physicality, but they're going to play you physical to where it will be a determination for how that whistle is going to go coming up on Saturday. It's a big part of what they do. They are consistently rugged and aggressive in their play on both ends. 10-point advantage, 1:26 to go in the second half. So unless there is some incredible set of circumstances, it's going to be Purdue and McNeese for the right to go to the Sweet 16 coming up on Saturday in Providence, Rhode Island. All right, other scores ongoing right now. 12:32 in the second half, and BYU's on cruise control, 56-39. That's a 6-11 matchup in the East region. And BYU over VCU. At the half, Gonzaga, an 8 seed, 48-27 over the 9 seed, Georgia. Georgia went through about the first 8 minutes and had all but 3 points on the board. So it was a significant struggle for the Dogs in the first half offensively. Meantime, games already complete. As I mentioned, Purdue over High Point 75-63 to start the day. 8-9 game down at Rupp Arena. That is the South region. The 9 seed Creighton really easily passed the 8 seed Louisville. 89-75 was your final there. Wisconsin, the 3 seed, 85-66 over the 14 Montana. That is in the East region. In the Midwest region, the 1 seed, and a lot of our selections to win it all. Kelvin Sampson's Houston Cougars team, 78-40 over SIU Edwardsville. That is the Ohio Valley Conference Championship team. And the 1 seed Auburn in the South, 20 points better than Alabama State, 83-63. I mentioned, too, between the evening session in the afternoon, you do have one swing game coming up at 6:50. That is the 2-seed Tennessee in the Midwest and the 15-seed Wofford. That tip time is at 6:50. Everything else coming up later on tonight, 7:10. 7:10 matchup with Kansas and Arkansas. Hopefully that's a good one in the West region. 7:25 for the 4-seed Texas A&M, the 13-seed Yale in the South. I think a lot of people cannot wait to watch this. True TV at 7:35. Out of the SEC, one of those 14, the 6-seed Missouri, and your Missouri Valley Conference champion, 11th-seeded Drake, again, 7:35 on True TV. TNT 9:25, the 7-seed UCLA, the 10-seed Utah State of the Midwest. The 2-seed St. John's, 15-seeded Omaha at 9:45. Dusty May, who joined us on the show yesterday, the South region in Denver first round, and the Big Ten Conference champion Michigan, the 5-seed. They get the 12 from the Big West, California, San Diego, and as Dusty told you yesterday, a high volume of threes from that team. Well, watch out for that. That tip time TBS tonight at 10 o'clock. The 3-seed Texas Tech, the 14 UNC Wilmington, tips at 10:10 in the West. And that is your schedule for this evening. We'll keep you updated on all the other games, too. 239-1070 is the number, by the way. A couple of calls, top of the hour, about 8 minutes of Anything Goes. And no Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers again later on tonight. Pacers second of a back-to-back. They get that matchup with the Brooklyn Nets at the Fieldhouse later on tonight. 6:30 coverage begins right here after the Colts Daily Update on the Fan. Meantime, 239-1070. Jay is up next on the show. Jay, welcome. How are you?
Hey, John, I wanted to tell you about a notable alumni of McNeese State that your producer said nobody's mentioned yet. Joe Dumars.
Indeed, Joe Dumars is the pride of McNeese.
The tandem of him and Isaiah Thomas were great back in the day.
Joe Dumars. I don't know if I've even brought up those from McNeese in the past, but that is a good call by you.
And I wanted to let you know McNeese State's going to make Purdue not their nephew, but their little niece. They're going to make Purdue look small on Saturday.
They are. So you're a big fan of big-time upset with McNeese State here. That's what you're suggesting to me right here?
You, so you got to be against Purdue. So.
Oh, I got you. Noted alumni from McNeese right here. They've got a list of them right here. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Jay. Joe Dumars would be one of those. Basketball Hall of Famer. I'm looking at others right here, by the way, and going down the list, seeing if you know anybody else besides Joe Dumars. Let's see. I'm looking. I don't know if you know anybody else besides Joe Dumars right here. Here's one. Remember football coach R.C. Slocum, Texas A&M? McNeese guy. B.J. Sams, punt, kickoff returner, the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. McNeese. Looking for any entertainers here. See, I wouldn't know. Novelist and Pulitzer Prize winner in 2012, Adam Johnson. A writer and a book? That'd be problematic for me right there. Joe Dumars at the top of that notable alumni list for McNeese. As they're rolling with it right now. Do I need a break or are we cool? Can I get the bill right here? All right. Can I get the bill or you want me to wait? I'll tell you what, Bill, hold on. I'll get you on the other side. About 8 minutes and anything goes as well. And we'll also have some Outlaw Fest tickets before we leave you today. Coach Daily Update, Pacer pregame. That is on the schedule after me tonight. Brothers Downtown tomorrow beginning at 3. I follow Jake, that's Query and Company, at Prime 47 downtown. And what should be a awesome day for you to check us out coming up tomorrow. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Stupid is no way to go through life, son.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We almost had a significant gag. McNeese holds on. Now, we'll say this. They had to hit some free throws, and they won by 2, 69-67. James probably didn't know because he was on the phone for the entire segment right there, or the entire break after the segment. But it wasn't in doubt. It was not in doubt. I didn't think. 69-67, McNeese over Clemson. And the Boilermakers get McNeese coming up on Saturday. Outlaw Music Fest, 239-1070, September, the show at Ruoff Music Center. Who would like to go? That was Sheryl Crow right there. Sheryl Crow will be a part of it. And a couple of absolute legends. Bob Dylan, the biopic. Have you guys all seen that? I have not. Bob Dylan and the incomparable Willie Nelson. Outlaw Music Fest, September, Ruoff, Live Nation, thank you. Tickets available right now. I'm telling you, they have put together, Live Nation, such an incredible number of great shows. I mean, really, the shows in this area, whether we're talking about Ruoff or Everwise or Old National Center, the main room inside the Egyptian Room, Brown County Music Center, Cambridge Fieldhouse has some. If you haven't been to Hendrix Live over in Plainfield, awesome venue too. I'm probably leaving somebody out. I don't mean to. But what I'm trying to tell you is there are places, I'm assuming, what's the place up around Broad Ripple where they have shows as well? It's outside. That place has got a lot of great shows. I'm sure they really appreciate it. I call it that place, but I don't recollect what it's called. Great shows. It will be a spectacular summer for us all. Promise you that. No Tyrese Halliburton coming up later on tonight. Ruled out by head coach Rick Carlisle a little bit earlier today. 7:30 pregame coverage. The Nets of Brooklyn and the Pacers, the second of the back-to-back and the first of 2 straight here in Indy with Brooklyn. That's tonight and on Saturday night. Actually, Saturday late afternoon at 5 o'clock is the matchup with the Nets, round 2. And this would be tonight the second of 5 straight at home for the Pacers. And as they did last night, we almost had to cuss them out. I fortunately did not hit send on a lot of my criticism because the Pacers last night came back and they beat the Dallas Mavericks. 135-131 was the final. And as much as a lot of you got all over Pascal Siakam defensively in the fourth, he made 2 defining moments. That's why you're winning time plays defensively. A block on a breakaway, and then the takeaway, the thievery of one Max Christie. When it really mattered, that led to the bury of an Andrew Nembhard 3 and basically turned out to be, after a couple of made free throws, the difference. 135-131, the final last night. That saved a lot of you. I know a lot of you had to hit delete, and some of you are absolutely nuts. I mention this all the time. As much as I love Alex Golden, he's got some of the craziest followers to setting the pace that either are just so wound up too damn tight or don't know anything about basketball, one of the two. I would suggest this. Alex is good at what he does. He needs to teach those that follow him a little bit more because it is head-up-ass syndrome with them. They're all over the ice on everything. So I think Alex is the instructor, is the educator that's necessary for that group. But they were, last night, all over the place. I will say this, though. Privately, I felt the same way. But I kind of wondered with that group that Dallas had on the floor, and then once Rick started matching up with it, Miles goes to the bench in the fourth, in comes Obi, and they go even smaller. I thought those were some big decisions that led ultimately to a win. Pacers back-to-back with Brooklyn coming up later on tonight. Billy, top of the hour. We'll lead with Anything Goes with Billy. About 6 minutes.
Actually, it'll be about 8 minutes.
About 8 minutes. 8 minutes of anything goes coming up on the other side. Me getting you updated, and it's day number 1 of the NCAA tournament as we transition into the first evening of the NCAA tournament. Boilermakers win. It's Purdue and McNeese coming up on Saturday. Time to be determined. Location, Providence, Rhode Island. The winner heads here for the Sweet 16. We'll describe it for you. That and more coming up, too. Pacers tonight, and then on the road coming up tomorrow. Don't go away. Anything goes at 239-1070. That's next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Question for you. What color is an orange? Ted, you bonehead. Its color is the same as its name, just like a lemon.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Holy hell, I want to do some Anything Goes. We got 8 minutes. Lock and load, friends. Show tomorrow is going to be at Brothers Downtown. Bud Light, you going to be there? Mini Hoops Mania? Yeah, you got to be there. We'll watch there. Prime 47, Jake Query and Company at noon. Watch party. I'm going to slide by there. So let's just all get together tomorrow and hang, shall we? Seriously, no excuses. I don't want to hear any stinking excuses. Let's all hang tomorrow. Whether it's noon until 3 at Prime 47 or with me at Brothers Downtown, and then we'll go into the evening, and then somebody out there can just take me home. To my house. Not to yours, mine. So, yes, tomorrow, again, Bud Light with me, Brothers Downtown. That begins at 3 o'clock. Boilermakers beat High Point, Purdue, McNeese. That is coming up on Saturday. Time to be determined. Location, Providence, Rhode Island. Bobby Riddell. Buckets joined us from the Boilermaker Radio Network. We discussed that. Hey, by the way, tomorrow, Robert Ory going to join us on the show tomorrow, right?
5:30.
5:30 for Robert Ory. Yes, that Robert Ory. Robert Ory was doing on Compass Media, the Big Ten tournament, and I listened, and I thought, man, I want to get him on. Big Shot Bob tomorrow on the show. Cannot wait for that. Wells tomorrow, Normalcy, Don Fisher. I'm looking for any response from IU about getting anybody on, from Dolson to DeVries. Hey, IU, anybody there? Come on, man. Dang. Introduce your new guy either through the AD or him. I know that they're busy. Got 5 minutes. Let's go. I don't know. Maybe the other shows, do they have him on tomorrow? Because I haven't heard back.
I haven't heard
I'm trying
anything.
to go through Greg Lansing. I just circumvent the entire situation. So what the hell? Instead of jacking around with that. That's what I need to do with the Pacers sometime. I haven't heard. I asked about Obi, like, how long does it take?
It's been a minute.
Damn. Thank God for Chad Buchanan, everybody, let me tell you. Or hell, I wouldn't get a damn note. All right. I said it's Anything Goes. Bottom of the hour, Pat Boylan's got the pregame. That follows the Colts Daily Update. Bill is going to be a part of Anything Goes. Hello, Billy.
Hey, JMV. Hey, I just wanted to say I thought the GOAT was excellent.
Yes, it is. Indeed it
this
is.
Week. Fantastic venue. And like you said, a lot of beautiful people there. I kind of felt like Flounder from the Delta House. But,
Flounder. I will say this about Flounder. If you remember, Billy, Flounder had a smoking hot girlfriend. Did he? She was smoking. Otter tried to move in on Flounder's girlfriend at the toga party.
He certainly did, and I've had that happen to me a couple times as well. But the GOAT has an IPA called God's Hand. It's called God's Hand.
Sure,
it's one of their IPAs, and so I must have taken communion there at least 4 times this past week.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I agree. We have to thank you to Moyer Fine Jewelers for having us there, but we have to get back. The GOAT on the Monon and Carmel's great.
Yeah, it's got to be a regular, and it's such a nice area up there in Carmel because there's a lot of streets that have a lot of bricks. I noticed that there are a lot of bricks in some of the streets there. So I think the city of Carmel needs to rename one of those streets Angel Reese Boulevard.
Yeah,
because nobody knows anything more about bricks than Angel Reese. But I want to comment about one thing that Mike Chappell said about 1974. I graduated from high school in 1974, and there were 2 Mr. Basketballs that year. The only other time there was 2 Mr. Basketballs when Tom and Dick Van Arsdale from Manual High School were both Mr. Basketballs back in the 60s. But there was Roy Taylor, as he had mentioned, up in Anderson. But there's another guy from Southwestern High School named Steve Collier that was a Mr. Basketball. So you had a coach from the southern part of the state, Kirby Overman, New Albany's coach, and then you had the Evansville press, and Larry Bird got totally punked. When you think about it, where there's somebody else that might have been a pretty good ball player, but he probably wasn't Larry Bird.
Yeah, he didn't play, right? He didn't play. Then he wouldn't go in when he got subbed in.
He wouldn't go in. He wouldn't go in. So, I don't. I read biographies about different people having things that motivate them in their lives. I would have to say, and I don't know Larry Bird, but I'd have to say that his experience in 1974 and getting snubbed like that probably had something really, really positive to do with his motivation to go on and succeed. So, anybody that doesn't seem to get recognized, or you feel like a failure or whatnot and everything, you can turn out to be the next Larry Bird. So
you got it, Billy.
I think that's the thing.
Yeah. Hey, tomorrow at Brothers, you going to be there with us?
You betcha.
All right,
Prime and Brothers.
You got that right. We'll do it, Billy. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, Prime 47, Query and Company, noon until 3. I'm at Brothers with Bud Light, Many Hoops Mania, 3 until 6 tomorrow. Cannot wait to see you. Pam on line 3 is next. Hello, Pam.
Hello?
Hi, Pam.
Hey, it's Ann, but that's all right. So I have 3 things. I hope the Colts pick a tight end. That guy from Penn State's looking pretty good. I hope that Anthony and Daniel are able to work it out because, I thought Flacco refused to be a teacher for Anthony. So whoever wins, I hope they follow behind each other with grace. And then I'm with you with DeVries. Bad choice. Look at people already leaving. So anyway, that's all I got.
Pam, thank you very much. I appreciate it. No, I don't mind DeVries. I'm just I'm waiting on IU to go, hey, can you get back with me? I mean, you can give me Dolson or DeVries or somebody. Let's have a little bit of a chat. That's more self-fulfillment for me than anything else. But no, I don't mind it. I'm kind of curious how far down the list they went. But, if he wins, it doesn't matter. And I liked him as a coach, at least the time I saw him a couple of years ago at Drake. And certainly had success there. So we shall see. But now I don't dislike it at all. I'm just kind of waiting on him to think and call me back on that sometime. Hey, Warren's up next on line 4. Hello, Warren.
Hey, what's up?
Go ahead.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What did Chappell say he was going to put in his wife later?
Yeah, I know. I heard the same thing. Did you notice I disregarded that?
You did. I about blacked out. I was driving. I about blacked out. So all right.
Thanks, Warren. I appreciate that. Yeah. Fulton is here. Hi, Fulton.
Hello, John. How are you?
Fulton, I'm just waiting on you to call.
Yes, I am. I just got the email today.
You got the email today?
Yep, I do.
That's awesome.
It says, thank you for taking the time to touch base this week. Congratulations again on being selected as the winner of the 2024 Colts Hall of Fans promotion.
You're a Hall of Fan. Fulton?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to tell you what. To be Fulton's pretty cool. You know?
Yep, and they're going to display the banner in Lucas Oil Stadium. They're going to get a picture of me in there, and then they put it in Lucas Oil Stadium.
Well, you're going to have to start calling Gorman every day, too, okay?
I sure will. Tell him,
no, you will.
See him tomorrow. And...
I know you will. All right, buddy. Yes. I got to run here. Thank you very much. What is this right here? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Tell him to check his text for me.
I think Todd wants you to check a text that he sent you.
No, hell, I didn't see it. What do you see? This is anything goes. It's wild. Off the rails at the end. Yeah, Delray Brooks and Troy Lewis co-Mr. Basketballs. I think 84 was that year. Bye.